So let's just talk about what we've done on number 4 so far, and then we can finish it. Okay, so remember 4A was a Riemann sum problem where you have to use midpoints to calculate the value of f of 6. So it was a combination problem with the Riemann sum and the FTC part 1. Okay. The second part of the question was, if we know that f prime is between 0 and 7, then is it possible for f of 6 to be 70? And the answer was no, because it has to be less than or equal to 62, because this integral has to be less than 42. Okay? Any questions on what we've done so far? I think that's all we've done on this problem. So who did we leave off with? Who did this part of the problem? You did? Okay.
Well, Logan has to go.
But yeah, Logan has to go like 3 times.
Oh yeah, Logan, come on,
Stop
man.
throwing me under the bus. I didn't even see the first half of the question. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Read it.
I mean, I have to go too, but I didn't use one. But I think I'm.
Okay.
But you
Logan,
can
come
go
on.
first.
Come on up, dude.
I'm gonna use the other one for my big one.
Alright. So part
Going on.
C.
You got this, buddy.
Don't worry, you can phone a friend, remember.
Yeah, I use that a lot.
Remember, this is the no judgment zone. We're all just trying to get 5s. Everybody can get a 5. There's no quota. We can have 11 5s.
Oh, my note cards. It's the only way I can do that. Yeah, I put so much time into this.
So they're giving you a table with values of f prime, and they want you to find this integral of f double prime.
What is like the midpoint mean? I don't remember how to do that.
That's that's a different question not used in this part, but the Riemann here I'll show you that.
So I was just trying to
Yeah.
understand the whole problem.
So the midpoint Riemann sum is when you calculate the definite integral right here, the definite integral from 0 to 6 of f prime using rectangles where the height is given by the midpoint of the interval. So like you take this interval and you find the area given by this height. And then you take this interval and you take the area given by that height. And then you take this interval and you take the area given by that height, the midpoint in each case. Does that make sense? So that gives you the definite integral of f prime, and then that was used to in this problem to find f of 6. But you don't need to do that in part C. Part C is totally standalone, actually. If you
I can help you. Well, give me a suggestion.
So you know that an integral is the amount of change other than before. So use the values in the table to figure out the amount of change from 2 to 4.
So what he's saying is the derivative of f prime is f double prime. So the integral of f double prime has to be f prime. So this integral would be f prime evaluated from 2 to 4.
So
And they give you that in the table.
would it just be 1.7 minus?
You got to show work. This is a pre-response question. So I would write equals f prime and then a vertical line. and then equals f prime of 4 minus f prime of 2. Like actually write this, for f prime of 4. Any problem with that? Say it louder. Negative, right? 1.7 minus 2 is negative. Yeah. All right, good. Now, I was going to say what are the units, but they don't give you any units, so forget that. All right, any questions on this? Okay, you want to do part D? All right. So part D, I think is on the page. Yeah, all right, go for it.
This is the half total.
Yeah. Okay, does anybody agree with that? Yeah, so that's the only thing wrong with this that I see. This technically isn't true. F of x minus 20e to the x does not equal 20. F of 0 minus 20e to the 0
Okay.
equals 20.
Sorry,
That's definitely
what I
true.
meant to
So
say.
what you really want to show is that the limit as x goes to 0 of that stuff is 0, and the limit as x goes to 0 of that stuff equals 0.
Okay, yeah, that's what I meant.
Any disagreement with this answer? I think it's right. Yeah, it's right. So does everybody understand what you have to show to use L'Hopital's rule? You have to show that the limit of the top equals 0 and the limit of the bottom equals 0. That's what you have to show. Okay, good job. I forgot to say points. For the previous question, part C, this question was worth 2 points. 1 point for using FTC part 1, which is just saying that the integral of f double prime equals f prime from 2 to 4. And then 1 point for having the correct answer. And then for part D, this is also worth 2 points. 1 point for correctly using L'Hopital's rule. That includes verifying the hypotheses of L'Hopital's rule over here. 1 point for that, and then 1 point for getting the correct answer. Any questions on that? Okay, this was a kind of a long free response question. It was 4 parts, and it involved like a lot of different things. It had Riemann sum, FTC part 2. It had like an estimation question that dealt with definite integrals. It had FTC part 1, and then it had L'Hopital's rule. That's a lot of different things that they're testing in one question. So this is a good example of like, don't let the points at the beginning keep you from getting points at the end. Like part C, totally separate. You could have solved part C without solving any other part. Part D, you could have solved part D without solving any other part. Okay, so don't give up on a problem just because you can't do part A. Okay, move on to the next part, see if you can come up with something. And then maybe something will come to you for the other parts. Okay? Nice job. All right, so who's up then? Let's see. John, I guess? K89. K89 is a multiple choice with calculator. Where is it? Is it on the spot? Oh, yeah, okay.
This means that G prime of x is FP, or does that mean?
Yes, if f of x. G prime of x equals f of x. Yeah, that's FTC part 2.
There's like a lot, there's like a one.
Average value is.
Were they in trees? No, they were in rocks. Yeah, like they're not short.
Average.
Probably not.
All right, just pay attention, please. Distract.
Average rate of so it wouldn't be this.
Right.
Would it be this one?
Phone a friend, does anybody have suggestions or ideas? Why do you think it's A?
Well, mostly because I know the other ones aren't true.
How do you know D's not true? You didn't cross that one off.
Yeah, because you are not even having full insurance, so how do you make that? And say that.
Wait a minute, so. No, I think it is A, actually.
You think it's A?
It's saying that the limit is
Yeah.
6, and G is saying that in a town it's 6,
Since
and
it's
that's what.
the average rate of change of F, also, the average value G prime.
Any arguments or clarification or disagreement or agreement? Anybody have anything to say about this? So you think it's A?
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's A. So let me just try and explain it a little bit here. All right, so just in words, it kind of makes sense if the average rate of change of G over an interval is the same thing as the average value of the rate of change. That makes sense, right? And the average value of the rate of change would be the average value of G prime, which is the average value of F. So just in words, that kind of makes sense. If we're just changing the order of two words, that's it. The average rate of change and the average value of the rate of change. They're the same thing. But let's do it in actual symbols. Like if you think about what the average rate of change of G is, he wrote it here. I'm going to write it just in the opposite order. I'm going to write G, it's the same though, it's the same, but I'm just going to write G of 5 minus G of 2 over 5 minus 2. That's what this is saying. The average rate of change of G over the interval from 2 to 5 is 6. That's that stuff. Now let's think about what this statement is saying, the average value of F. The average value of F on the interval from 2 to 5 is 6. What that's saying is 1/3 the integral from 2 to 5 of f of x dx equals 6. But think about what this actually is. If G prime is f of x, then doesn't it make sense that the integral of f is really G, right? So this is really 1/3 of G of 5 minus G of 2, which is the same thing as this. This is 1/3 of G of 5 minus G of 2. So analytically, we just proved that A is the same thing as what they said in the problem. But you can also do it just using the English language, like just thinking about the average rate of change versus the average value of the rate of change. They're the same thing. Does that make sense? Okay. This choice right here is the one that a lot of students like do this. I don't get a sense that a lot of you are making this mistake, but the average rate of change is definitely not just the rate of change here plus the rate of change here divided by 2. That's definitely not what they mean by the average rate of change. They don't mean average the two rates of change. So that's that mistake, and the other two are just clearly wrong. Okay? Any questions on that question? All right. A lot of this test is reading comprehension. Like you have to be able to read the question and like sort of figure out like what they're actually asking. If every question just said, take the derivative and set it equal to 0, I mean, that would be a much easier test, right? So like half the battle is figuring out what they're asking in every question. Okay, good job. So Aiden's not here. Chella, you're up. '87. I almost just sat on the floor. That would hurt. Here you go.
Remember when I pulled your stool out?
It's 7th grade. Yeah. Screw you for that
Your
one.
toes hit the table so.
No, yeah, that was so neat. Sorry. At first it was really too neat. I mean, that's just kind of
I had it on
easy. Yeah,
I just have my phone.
I can use it.
My prized possession.
Same.
I think I've done this in school.
My car was the other one.
All right, let's pay attention. Okay, so 2 questions. Why do you think f prime is negative? That's the first question. Yeah, because the values are decreasing from left to right. why do you think f prime is decreasing then?
Oh, my very rough graphic kind of looks concave down. So,
It doesn't look concave down to me between like, if you go between like 2 and 4, right? Like, look at your picture. It doesn't look like it between 2 and 4. It looks concave up to me. Or it looks concave down. Wait,
If
yeah,
you look
so
at the,
part of your picture looks concave up and part of your picture looks concave down. Go
if
ahead.
you look at the actual numbers, I feel like it would be concave up, because 9 to 4 would be
Yeah, you're
5, and then 4 to 0 is 4, and then it's 3, and then it's 2, so it'd be like going
it gets like less drastic.
Yes.
I agree.
I agree too. Okay, so yeah, you could just look at it analytically just by subtraction. Like the difference between these is 5, then it's 4, then it's 3, then it's 2. So the y values are decreasing by less each time. So your graph is actually, it's kind of like this shape. So it's concave up, which means f prime is increasing. Okay? Does everybody understand that? So you were on the right track looking at concavity. Your picture was a little too rough.
It's fine.
All right. Any questions on that? Next, Paul. One thing you might have noticed here is that a lot of these free response calculator questions have nothing to do with calculators at all.
That's honestly why.
Yeah. And related to that, while I was working on this, just related to that, remember, you're going to get questions 1 and 2 for free response. You're allowed to use your calculator. Then they're going to take away your calculator. You got to put it under your desk or whatever. And then you can work on numbers 3, 4, 5, and 6. But you can still go back to numbers 1 and 2 in that hour that you have. So if you find yourself running short on time in that first half hour that you have to work on numbers 1 and 2, like skip the parts that you think you'll be able to do without your calculator, because you'll be able to go back and work on it during the other time. You get what I'm saying? So that's a good test taking strategy too. If you're running short when you're working on 1 and 2, then figure out what you like. That L'Hopital's rule question you can do without a calculator, although that whole question is not calculated. But you get the idea. Like sometimes you might be able to do part of number 1 or 2 without a calculator. Can you show just a little bit more work? I'm not saying it's wrong, but how did you arrive at that conclusion?
So I put that derivative in the calculator, and then when it's equal to 0, just 3 points on the graph, it'll be either a maximum or a minimum, and then there's only one where it goes from increasing to decreasing, which means it'll be a maximum.
Okay,
You can see it's at about 0.6.
yeah, I agree. Any questions on that? Just something I would have done a little bit differently. I would have actually done a sign chart because it's a little more graphically clear to me. So if this is -1 and this is 9, you have 3 zeros, and then just like do something like this, where it's like decreasing, increasing, decreasing, increasing, and then you can see, okay, so the maximum either occurs, well, the endpoints aren't included, so the only relative maximum here is at that middle value, and then how come you didn't actually find that value?
is the only one that's needed.
Yeah, so don't waste your time, right? Like, you don't have to actually find that value if you can see on your graph, on your graphing calculator, it's between 0 and 1, and that's the only choice that's between 0 and 1. Like, that's it. So, good job. Any questions on that? Okay. Next is Logan again. Everybody agree? Are you sure? I don't agree that that's the answer. I might be wrong.
I feel like it is. Because if f of t is the rate, then f prime of t would be the
Oh,
rate
okay.
at which.
I
the
agree.
rate is changing.
I agree. All right, so I'm gonna ask you a few questions though. So what would A be in symbols? Yeah, like what is A actually saying?
That f of 5. 2.8.
Okay, what is C saying?
Yeah. The integral from the line of
Yeah, so C is saying the integral from 0 to 5 of f of t dt is 2.8. And what is D saying?
the integral from 0 to 5 of f prime is equal to 2.8.
I don't agree with that.
Right.
So what is D saying? Can anyone help him? Yeah, this is the same sort of thing we just talked about. You can either think of this as the average rate of change, which would be the average value of f of t. So that would be 1/5 the integral from 0 to 5 of f of t dt equals 2.8. Or you can think of it as the average rate of change. No, don't think of it that second way, because we don't know what the function is that represents the original quantity. All we have is the function that represents the rate. You get what I'm saying? So you have to think of this, like D is really just 1/5 integral of f of t. Does everybody understand? All right, so see, I might have gotten this question wrong. All right. Next. Josh. Stop looking at him.
Oh, I got two.
Okay. All right, he got 90 and 1. He's choosing 1. Okay. Number 1. Yeah, theoretically, number 1 is the easiest question on the test. Does anybody disagree? Good job. Why do you think they give you the easiest questions first?
Yeah, one.
Yeah, so people don't start the test and they're like, oh God, there's no hope. I can't do anything on this test. I'm terrible. I suck at that. Right? So what if you get to the test on Tuesday and you start doing number one and you don't know what to do?
Cry.
Drop
Just
out.
go to the next question. Like, don't worry about it. Okay? Just don't worry about it. Go to the next question. Everybody in this room knows something, and maybe you know number two. And you'll come back to it, and maybe you'll figure out number one. You just were done the first time. Okay? So don't panic if you don't know something. It's okay. Nobody in this room is going to get 100 on the AP test, and nobody in this room has to get 100 on the AP test. You have to get a 60. A 60.
Okay, don't make me sound that easy.
You can all get a 60. Everyone in this room skip will get a 60. 77.
A 75? Yeah. On to get a 5. Yeah. Ew. No.
In what class?
See what a 3 in chemistry.
See what?
There it is.
Yeah. Yeah, you are.
Well, I wanted to press out of it, but I don't think how much shit.
I'm not sure why though. You got a 5. You will. So you leave it at 11.
Leaving at 10:15. Better.
Wow.
Is there like a question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Your calculator won't do indefinite integrals like that. But you mean enter it in? Okay, that's all right. Absolutely. What's that called? Yeah. Right over here. Oh, good question.
Yeah.
Would it be 2 to 5 or 5 to 2? 5
And
to
then would
2.
it be?
Okay, so I would have, no, if I was doing it, what I would have done, I would have done 8 to 5 minus 2 to 5, would that be the same thing? Right?
Yes. Why would you do that?
Well, my logic was like, I was thinking normally it's like f of 0 plus 0 to,
So you're thinking graphically, is that how
yeah.
you're thinking it?
Yeah, so I was thinking if you subtract,
Okay.
the
That's
total
also the
change from
negative.
the top one, you would get, like, yeah, I don't know.
Okay, no, I get it, that's, that makes sense. I don't think of those problems graphically for some reason. I think of it as just like A's and B's. I think of f of A equals f of B plus the integral from B to A. Like I just think of it that way. This number has to match that number, and that number has to match that number. That's the way I'm thinking about it, but graphically it's probably a better way to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about it, like, I would put the formula in like h of 5 minus h of 2 equals from 2 to 5,
Yeah,
and then I would just move stuff around.
yeah.
No, because there would be the difference between how and
Okay, does anybody disagree? I think it's great. Just, go ahead. You can sit down. I think this is another reading comprehension confusing problem, in a way. Yeah, they say h of x is an antiderivative of that. So this is what I would have done. I would have said h is this, therefore h prime of x is x squared plus sine x over x squared plus 5, plus 2. That's kind of the connection I would have made in my brain. And then I would have said FTC part 1 is h of 2 is h of 5 plus the integral from 5 to 2 of h prime of x dx. Like that's FTC the way I think about it, and then I just would have gone from there. It's the same thing you did, but yeah, I would like kind of make that jump right there, because the FTC, this has to be the derivative of whatever function is here. Okay? So, well, great job. I guarantee you one of these choices is if you had switched the limits of integration. I'm sure that answer is probably there too. Okay? Let's check actually. So I could just go second entry, and then I could just go back and change the limits of integration. So, yeah, so they gave that answer. So nice catch. Good job. Any questions so far? We're almost there. 2 more days. And then it's the exam. Friday and Monday, and the exam's Tuesday. Okay?
And the thing tomorrow is 4th period, not 3rd, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
4th and 5th.
All right. Good job. You guys are the bomb. The bomb. I have such a short career left that I might never have another class like this.
What do you mean?
I'm a little
Career
bummed.
left?
Like exceptional classes, they come like far and few between. And I don't have very many years left, so, you know,
How many years left do you think?
8.
8, exactly.
But who's counting?
7.
Yeah, only 8 years.
8 years, I can retire. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Word.
I know.
Word up.
Word.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you guys later.
Mr. Baxter, I was kidding when I called you a loser.
Yeah.
You're like my favorite teacher.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.
Hi, Mr. Baxter, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
So you're not much hurry. You're gonna carry like all your baseball stuff around all day?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's convenient.
Yeah.